So this is the Act on Homelessness Collaborative Upper State Street Regional Action Plan, and we call these RAPs, and this is neighborhood by neighborhood, working with residents and business owners to address impacts of homelessness to the region, as well as working with and understanding the needs of individuals experiencing homelessness in that region as well. You know better than we do most of the time. And so you'll see a couple of our service provider partners on the call here. We have CityNet, who's our primary outreach and case management partner, and Aaron and Father John are with the Day Center, and a number of other initiatives with Good Samaritan Shelter and other organizations that do really critical relationship building, engagement, support services for individuals experiencing homelessness in upper state and other regions of the city of Santa Barbara. So we have this meeting weekly at 10 a.m. on Thursdays, specific to the upper State Street region. We have a number of other regional action plans. There's one specific to the east side, the waterfront, and we also have one for downtown State Street as well. And so Jeff Schaefer facilitates primarily the other regional action plans, and again, connecting to every community member is our commitment throughout the city. SB Act is the contracted partner with the city of Santa Barbara to facilitate what we call a collective impact initiative to reduce homelessness in the area. So what we do is serve as the facilitator, convener of a common agenda, which is a strategic plan. We have a 3-year strategic plan with 4 primary goals around increasing affordable housing, increasing case management and outreach capacity, increasing housing retention, as well as preventing individuals experiencing homelessness. So those goals all have measurable objectives to them, and then we shift strategies based on what we hear from our partner providers year by year. So that's a little background on us. So we have in our RAP format weekly focuses. So this is our data reporting week, which is usually the last Thursday of the month, depending on availability. This is when we hear from the city of Santa Barbara on data that they're receiving, data that we have available from our provider partners. And then as we go through the month, the first week is strategy. So where we're prioritizing our emphasis and targeted outreach in the upper State Street region. The second week is community concerns. So as you can see, to make sure that we have our provider partners participating, we usually do that. We usually host meetings between 9 to 5 on weekdays. We know that's not always the most convenient time for residents and business owners to engage. So we record this meeting as well as make sure that we're accessible with questions and concerns. And then that second week of the month, the second Thursday, is when we really want folks to commit the time to engage and share with us what their concerns are in the region. And then the third week, we conduct a site visit with provider partners in the area in one of the priority regions. Any questions on who we are and why you're joining us today?
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. So we did a site visit last week, and Al and the CityNet team were out in full force. And so first, I just want to share my gratitude for, again, just the close partnership we have with CityNet, the fact that they're able to now really put back boots on the ground, transitioning from some key programs that were happening the last several months, and the impact of COVID and staffing and hiring and all of those things. So the full team was there last Thursday. Our focus was to really look at what we're seeing as that corridor on Upper State from behind Big 5 Sporting Goods down to the Rose Garden Inn, just ensuring that there aren't any ongoing impacts at the Rose Garden Inn as that program has transitioned. And so that was our goal, but we spent all of our time working with individuals that were behind the Big 5 Sporting Goods location and then deeper into that 101, 154 corridor, where we know folks are living in tents in that area. So almost over an hour and a half was committed. Conrad Metzenberg, who's a resident from the area, joined us. I was there with the CityNet team. So Al, I appreciate you joining in. From the data that I've captured, we engaged with about 11 individuals. 2 were sitting behind the Big 5 Sporting Goods, but not necessarily the area that they sleep at night at all. They were just, again, and there's some sunshine back there, folks. It was a nice spot, super nice. really personable. One was a new client intake. One was an existing client that you were familiar with. And then a third one showed up with his beautiful dog, also an existing client that you had been engaged with in that area. So what has been wonderful to be a part of is the gratitude. And so as we were engaging with folks, it was just sharing, thank you so much. Thank you for programs like the Rose Garden Inn, where we were able to make progress on documentation readiness, have wonderful meals, have a safe place, be able to shower, create a space that's our own. And one of those individuals was from outside of California. So one, it's confirming, yes, we absolutely have a percentage of population that their last permanent address was not here. But the data continues to tell us that about 78% of individuals experiencing homelessness in our region, their last permanent address was in this region. So we will have updated data as of the point in time count yesterday morning. And we will absolutely share that data as we receive it from the County of Santa Barbara. So confirming, yes, we had someone from outside the area. And I will say his gratitude, as well as I want to give back. He actually expressed to us, are there ways that I can volunteer and give back to the community that has helped me and supported me through these times? And we absolutely said, yes, this is the way you can connect. We're able hopefully to connect them through our neighborhood navigation centers. And again, I want to reiterate the kindness of these individuals as we engage with them, and really their gratitude and expression of thanks to the community that has helped them along the way. As we made our way across that 154, 101 cross section, there was another tent located. And again, Caltrans had just been there. So it was very clean around the tent area. Things were organized. And there was a woman that we engaged with there that also had a partner. Again, really nice, engaging. It was updating of information for her and making sure, again, that she was connecting to the appropriate case manager with CityNet, and then making sure that we're able to follow up with her partner when he was able to return. And then as we made our way down, there was a number of additional tents, a couple of individuals that had been at the Rose Garden wanting to keep going on their documentation readiness, looking for additional documentation to make that happen, committing to a shelter referral, and again, wanting to keep engaging with their case manager. There were several other individuals, approximately 4 that we observed that didn't want to engage at the time, but they were familiar with CityNet and the CityNet team. So again, because we were in a group, it's a little intimidating. The trust and rapport that's built between these individuals and CityNet is what kind of keeps those relationships continuing forward. And then additional individual who I just adored, and Al knew him really well. And he is kind of like the patriarch of the area, making sure that folks are safe, getting what they need, and making sure that if they wanted to be connected to resources, that this individual is in contact with CityNet and able to facilitate that. He was laid off from a job in Goleta. So I've heard this a number of times, whether it was tech, we have military consulting companies and firms out there that kind of go through their contracts going up and down. And if someone's laid off, it tends to lead to one thing after another. So I don't want to share any more personal information than that, but I think, these highlights, I just want to demonstrate that these are our neighbors, and they are not only grateful, they're protective, they're just really engaged, really understanding. And we even had a couple of folks saying, if you want me to speak to someone to share my gratitude of what we were able to experience the last several months, please let us know. So I had 11 individuals total. Al, correct me if I'm wrong. 8 were existing clients, and 6 of those had been at the Rose Garden Inn for a brief period of time.
Yes, that was perfect. You took all the words out of my mouth. But it was just to go on top of you. It was great, collaborating with you guys. It was nice to see, someone from the community actually out there, boots on the ground as well, to get involved, just to kind of, see what we do on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And again, thank you for the opportunity to join you on that site visit. So we were there again for a significant period of time. As I was making my way back downtown, I did observe 3 other individuals that I had, noticed and observed and engaged with before that were frequenting that State Street region, and the same number of individuals in Mackenzie Park, which is about 2 or 3. So again, most individuals have been engaged and are either in case management right now already, or we're building rapport and trust with those individuals to get them comfortable to share data with us and be able to engage. So, the region in terms of outreach, we have been able to target resources. And again, it's had really positive impact so far. And as we speak, Kayla from our team at SBAC is joining with Elmer from the Safe Parking Program, and they're doing outreach to individuals living in their vehicles, both in the Hope, La Rada, Hitchcock pathway. Again, that was one of our priority regions. And correct me if I'm wrong, any of our provider partners, individuals living in their vehicles, 80% plus are employed. They keep to themselves. They prefer to be below the radar. And so it does take a long time to build rapport and trust with these folks. They tend to not want help, seek help. They are very self-sufficient, very, very self-reliant, like many of individuals experiencing homelessness. So it does take constant interaction for us to build that rapport to get it to the level that they're comfortable and want to be actually part of a case management system. So that is, again, why we keep focusing on that priority region, hearing from all of you that you did observe individuals living in their vehicles in that area. Any questions? Yes, yeah. Father John.
Did any of those people that you came in contact with, are they familiar with the Father Virgil Center?
Yeah, so we shared Day Center. A couple of them absolutely have been there, have been engaged, and again, know it to be a warm meal and laundry and a place to rest their head. So we did share information for those that weren't familiar. And then I also shared, because they did seem to frequent other areas depending on, again, their needs and their whereabouts, we did share the Neighborhood Navigation Center cards as well. So the type of providers that are in those locations, Tuesdays and Thursdays being the time, so that they can connect with resources if they happen to be downtown. But so the Day Center was first, Father John, and then I said, if you happen to be downtown during these times, we're also at the Neighborhood Navigation Centers as well.
Yeah, well, I'm not trying to toot our own horn, but I just wanted to make sure those, I know most of those people that you talked to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know Aaron's on the call, and we're doing HMIS with the help of Good Samaritans. So we're really trying to get those people signed, get them queued up for services.
Absolutely. And again, I think, Father John, that your engagement with them, their experiences with the Day Center, again, contributed absolutely to their expression of gratitude and thanks for the support that they are getting. And Conrad just joined us, but Jane, yeah, you've had your hand up, so I want to make sure that we get to you.
Sure, and I'm sorry, I don't seem to have the raise your hand icon on my
no worries, we're small enough. Yeah, we're a small enough group, I can see you.
First, thank you for that summary. That was really wonderful. I've been engaged a little bit on Nextdoor, and Nextdoor is a pretty brutal platform, and people like to complain a lot. And recently somebody had noted the encampment that you're talking about. So I suggested that they, report it, and I said I'd report it for them, which I did. Great. And I got a call back the very next day. It was really wonderful, a great response. And my question is, though, what is the plan for that encampment? Is that going to be allowed to stay there, or because the public, they don't really hear that we're working, that you're working with them and everything. So
absolutely. So a few things that is technically county jurisdiction, and CityNet is the primary case management outreach provider for the county as well. So continuing to engage those folks, again, getting them through and completing. So some have made substantial progress on the documentation readiness process. Like Father John has said, the Day Center is also helping facilitate that. So it really is Jane, when that housing opportunity opens up, that they're at the ready to get that referral and be successful in that new housing unit. So it's going to take some time. We're still under CDC guidelines for COVID-19. And so that is not dispersing encampments, right? So we're dealing with kind of public health protocols right now. So the cleaning around them with Caltrans, the organization of personal belongings, to again prevent any sort of fire risk and things like that, that has all been completed most recently. Ongoing case management and outreach so that when there is housing or even Dignity Moves. So the Dignity Moves project is set to open in April. Folks have to be part of the coordinated entry system, which again is CityNet. This is why CityNet's taking their data and constantly updating it so that they're eligible for these referrals. We are learning that there is going to be a prioritization for individuals that frequent downtown Santa Barbara and Santa Barbara in general for the Dignity Moves project. So huge opportunity for folks that have been working regularly with CityNet and other providers to facilitate the referrals to those locations. And the last thing is permanent supportive housing units. So we will let you know, and CityNet for sure will be sharing successes as we get individuals housed from the Upper State Street region. So we have quarterly reports with CityNet broken up by our regional action plans. And so we'll give you a quarterly report and update in April about the exits, we call them street exits, that we've been able to facilitate in the Upper State Street region. And that both includes temporary exits to emergency shelters, as well as permanent exits to permanent supportive housing, as well as relocation and reunification with folks. So we will share the data and wins, but it is going to be some time before we can get all of the people in that location to either a temporary or permanent location.
Barbara, when does that start one more time? What's the date you said, roughly 1 month?
So we do quarterly with Emily. So when you wrap up the end of March, we usually have a couple of weeks. And then in April, we report out in partnership.
No, the Dignity Moves.
Oh, the Dignity Moves, April. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Reporting and yes. Perfect. Yeah. So that is set, that the county updated us last week, and that is, we're hoping is April would be the time that they open up, and that's 33 units that will be available. Jane, does that answer your question? It's just going to take time. And the other piece of this is the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision at the end of 2019, where if individuals do not have another location to be referred to for a safe place to sleep at night, you can't enforce to the level that you would otherwise be able to. So at any given time, the city of Santa Barbara has 6 to 12 shelter beds open. It's not a great number. We have a need of 262 shelter beds based on our 2020 point in time count. We have to meet that threshold to be able to use law enforcement as a significant strategy across the city.
Okay. I thought that the police were going to these encampments and actually giving warning, giving like 72-hour warning for illegal camping, but that's not true, or?
There is some of that can happen, again, because the impacts are greater. They're public safety hazards. They're in a location that is very prone to high fire risk. Just the effort with utilization of the Rose Garden Inn as a temporary safe shelter program was to clear individuals from encampments in those high priority, high fire risk regions. So there is a level of enforcement that can be facilitated. But again, using it as a significant strategy right now is very difficult because we do not have sufficient shelter beds to be able to refer people to. So we are in this place of strategic enforcement when it can be utilized and the impacts are greater than, right? So it's public safety greater than individual impacts. And then some opportunity to continue to case manage folks to be able to get them into temporary or permanent housing solutions.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then that location of individuals living in their tents is a high priority region for the County of Santa Barbara Encampment Response Task Force. So we're in direct communication with the CO boss there to making sure that, again, their monitoring is being reported back to us if we are not also firsthand monitoring that region. So we will always share those updates as we have them available. And there was a great question from Carol. The Super 8 project, and again, we're hoping to hear good news from the state of California Project Home Key program about acquiring that property. There was a really, really great informational meeting 2 weeks ago that the County Housing Authority, City of Goleta, were facilitating with the County of Santa Barbara Housing and Community Development Division. That is permanent supportive housing. So that is not a Dignity Moves project. And so the Dignity Moves is a bridge housing program. So that is stabilizing individuals over a 90 to 120 day period as they get referrals to permanent supportive housing units. The Super 8 project is permanent supportive housing, and it's 60 units of permanent supportive housing. So people will be provided intensive supportive services, but that is a location that they can stay at indefinitely while they need those supportive services. Does that answer that question? And from what we've heard, if the state of California Project Home Key project, which is a hugely significant portion of the funding to be able to acquire that property, if that's approved, the timeline is about 8 months before that property would be available to take in referrals, again, for 60 units of permanent supportive housing. And in terms of the same folks that Al, you might want to speak to this in terms of the coordinated entry system and how individuals are prioritized both for a bridge housing program as well as permanent supportive housing. That process does have a lot of layers to it. But any just background in terms of what it takes to facilitate referrals to any number of locations, as again, we work with individuals that have exited the temporary safe shelter program at the Rose Garden Inn.
Yeah, so the coordinated entry system is just a database that our community uses in order to kind of identify what opportunities and options are available when housing comes available. Now, it also comes into account with the being document ready, their vulnerability index, which we do a VIS FDAT, which kind of gives us a range of where they would land in that area. Now there's permanent supportive housing, and there's tiers 1, 2, and 3. There's rapid rehousing. There's tiers 1, 2, and 3. So based off where their vulnerability index score is, along with being document ready, coordinates right into this system where identifies what type of, subsidies that are possible, what type of services, they get as far as, supportive housing. So if you guys aren't familiar with the rapid rehousing, which is something easily to, understand, that's funding that's available to pay for deposits, first month's rent, and so for periods of time of extended rent in order for them to be able to take over at some point. So these individuals usually have to be able to work, create some type of employment for themselves. And we want to make sure, especially in these situations, that we don't put someone in a property or a unit that we know when the funding runs out that they're not going to be able to take over, right? We're not here to put a Band-Aid over this situation. We're not here to kick that can down the road, so to speak, and just get them back in the same situation. So for us, that's what this system identifies and helps us be able to properly place our clients that we're working with into the successful position when they get permanently housed. So that's, kind of the process. And of course, at the end of the day, we look to see whatever subsidy or assistance can help, because many of the individuals do suffer from mental health or, recovering in drug and alcohol. And so the ability to make a significant income isn't always, that's not usually the case. So we want to make sure we put them in the best situation based off where they fall in that index.
Thank you so much for that background. So again, 2 different types of projects and how referrals are facilitated are slightly different. But what's for us a benefit is that because the County of Santa Barbara and the folks that are doing the case management and outreach work know that individuals that have frequented and resided in an area that they, again, are best suited and most successful in a housing unit that is within that region, that region will be prioritized first, and then it subsequently grows from there. So Goleta, those who are individuals experiencing homelessness in Goleta will be prioritized for that permanent supportive housing project if the Super 8 property is acquired, and then it's South County in general. So that kind of, if that makes sense, we want people to be familiar with the region, know, again, they have doctors, they get prescriptions, all of things, banks, things that they access all the time. We want them to have that level of comfort because they're that much more successful in the housing unit if they are familiar with the region. But if they're open to other referrals outside of the region, then that will be facilitated as well. And Carol, everyone has the right to accept or not accept services. And so it really is this, time consuming process to build rapport and build trust with individuals to get them to open up to accepting services. So even if they refuse services at a time, we never give up, and we will keep going back and keep initiating conversation with them. So it does take some time for individuals to accept those services. And enforcement is only one strategy that can be utilized at any given time. It cannot be 100% the strategy that we deploy. We know is effective. It's effective in some ways, but ineffective in a lot of other ways. So we have to deploy multiple strategies at the same time to be able to give folks not only what they need, what they want, but ensure that whatever placement, temporary or permanent, is successful on their way to those more permanent solutions.
I've got a question. A couple of things. We get requests for emergency housing, and St. Vincent de Paul from the different parishes does not provide, like 1 or 2 day stays in hotels for whatever reason. Is there any emergency funding? And it always seems to come on Friday afternoon.
Yeah. Right.
At 3 o'clock. That's one question. And also women that are fleeing domestic violence or prostitution. Do we have a way to refer them? And that's in a sense, that's immediate. That's not, we can't say, well, show up 2 weeks from now or whatever.
The Domestic Violence Solutions has the crisis line, and I know that they have the ability to house people in a motel or hotel while they're finding either a shelter bed that's open and available or a housing unit that's open and available. Jeff, can you provide that information in the chat, or Rich, for Domestic Violence Solutions crisis line? And they have one specific for Santa Barbara. And Father John, I know that they have emergency resources for short-term stays while, again, trying to understand the needs and be able to facilitate that proper placement. And then Al, I know that there's some funding. It's just not a lot available now for non-congregate sheltering, kind of motel, hotel, short stays as individuals kind of find their path. But those are unique circumstances. And
yeah, they literally have to have a lease in place. Pretty much, it has to be knowing that we are literally be able to bridge them until they are moving into their unit. So it's really tight. It's not one that can be questionable. It has to be a legitimate bridge opportunity.
Yeah, it is if they are losing their housing situation, but have another housing situation to go to, that those funds would be available. Father John, in terms of folks reaching out, is it that situation, or that they have been evicted and they're trying to find out what their next steps are, and it's past their eviction or past, again, when they lose a housing unit and they haven't yet found or had taken the time or know what that next step is?
Well, the two instances that I've had, say, the last several months, is that these people were homeless, and I was able to secure some funds for a couple of days of what one woman referred to as just respite, 80 years old, sleeping on the street, so we were able to get her that small motel next to the lemon tree. And also we've used Motel 6 just for like a one night thing. People seem to be really stressed. And I know the issue is, are they going to go in there and start using, their friends or whatever? And I know that was the reason St. Vincent de Paul Society did not quit doing that, because they have no control. Once the room is rented, then you're responsible.
Right. And the rescue mission, Father John, I know you've been on our neighborhood navigation center meetings. The rescue mission has been so great about being able to take same day referrals with partners that are part of the Act on Homelessness collaborative. So just even reaching out to Kevin at any given moment first to see if there is again, a safe and open shelter bed for them at the rescue mission. I think again, just for real-time support could be your best option.
Yeah. Well, that's it, because it's really, this woman's 80 years old and she just said, I can't sleep on the street anymore,
Right.
you know.
Right.
So I didn't realize that they did have that at the rescue mission. I know Jeff sent out a list of you know, places and organizations. It would probably be good if we could reissue that, maybe with updates. That would be helpful for us with referrals.
Absolutely. So a couple of things we are working on. We have the homelessness response directory for residents and business owners specifically. We are working on a provider response directory with more detailed information about available beds, if there's a wait list, how referrals are facilitated, and at what time, and kind of what guidelines are around that. And we're doing that through our housing and shelter working group, and that we should have a draft available actually within the next couple of weeks. We're prioritizing first kind of mental health needs and crisis response, and then we'll expand it from there. So, but you're right. And Al, as Al mentioned, in the coordinated entry system, the prioritization is on older, more vulnerable individuals. So if they are open to, again, being part of that case management system, they would be kind of at the highest level of vulnerability and be prioritized for housing. So in communicating with individuals, we want to tell them this, that there is actually hope if, again, they're at that level where we know them to be most vulnerable.
And we want to, when we have these conversations, we want to kind of, especially, you know, if it's someone that you want to refer to us, you know, they can actually, you know, receive our service, help them. We want to make sure, like, I kind of build them up to be ready to answer these questions and to really try to open up with that, even if it's you know, a warm handoff or something, and it makes a huge difference, because when we do this specific survey, this VI SPDAT, it has a lot to do with that. So if they're not fully open and expressing that, you know, what they're really going through, it can affect that stuff. So being able to help that, especially if it's the first time they're meeting me, and I'm going over and asking some, you know, really, you know, involved and personal questions to try to help them. If they're not willing to get that information over to me or to our staff, then that's kind of what affects them as well. So being able to, if any of you guys have that rapport or have that connection already, knowing this information and letting them, kind of preparing them, will help us be able to fully serve them and provide the needs that they're looking for. And really, especially, you know, this individual, you know, that we're talking about.
And a few things to know, because Chris Clark from the city isn't here joining us. So we will get to his report next week. So I want to take a little bit of time here. One is, you know, if that Super 8 project gets accepted by the state of California Project Home Key program, within 8 months, that's 60 units in South County. We have 33 units coming in through the Dignity Moves modular units. That's a three-year program in downtown Santa Barbara. We have another 30 studio units that will be opening up on East Coda within the next 18 months. And then there's 300 plus units being slated for Northern Goleta through several developments. There's 2 different developments that will be completed in the next 24 months. So we communicate these things out because there is hope on the horizon. There absolutely is hope on the horizon. So we still need a significant number of emergency shelter beds. So that investment and that prioritization has to still be there and has to remain no matter what. But we do have, again, a number of housing units in the queue that have either broken ground or in the planning phase, again, or seeking additional funding opportunities to make happen. Any questions from folks? As I just want to open it up at this time. And Jeff, thank you so much for answering the question about Goleta. So SBAC does facilitate a regional action plan in the city, or with the city of Goleta, with CityNet again. Do you want to speak to that, Jeff, at all, in terms of where concerns or individuals and needs can be reported for Goleta?
Yeah, I just mentioned you can email me. I'll also put my phone number in there. Al may be a good connection too, but there are 2, Josh and Ed are putting us the Goleta contacts, so we can help them by passing the information on to them at our next call.
Any additional questions, concerns to share, regions that you'd like to suggest for prioritization?
I'd like to I got to quit asking so many questions,
No,
but
no, go ahead.
no, but I think a lot of people don't still understand what we're doing. And we just need more publicity. You know, I think that the more people know, I'm excited about all these other opportunities that you just present, you know, that are coming online. And we need coverage in the independent, the Santa Barbara News Press, you know, the thing in Montecito, and because a lot of people don't know and they don't remember, you know, and it goes off their radar. And
I agree. So Father John, maybe we can look at having our next site visit at the day center. You know, so folks can really see the work that you're doing there, how you're engaging with folks. So let's slate that for next month, and I'll work with you and Aaron to confirm that time. And we'll use that as a location again for folks to become familiar, because this is how we can share the good work, is by word of mouth. You know, we have really committed residents that join us every Thursday, and business owners that can get the word out through Nextdoor, through other avenues. Again, just sharing with neighbors that we have these resources. I think that could be the best next step for us to just get more exposure for the day center.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just think overall, just the exposure to what's going on, some kind of ongoing PR work, you know, with Nick Welsh, you know, is the lead, I guess, writer for the Independent. He's done several things for us, you know, but, you know, it's out of sight, out of mind. And then, you know, people's time, the span of remembering things is very short these days because there's so many things going on.
We do need to take more time in sharing successes, and so we're working on the larger collaborative report of progress that has been made over the last year and a half. So we'll be shouting that from the rooftops. I just heard incredible news last week that the 215 emergency housing vouchers. So this came through the federal government in response to COVID, more subsidized housing for individuals. 100% of those vouchers were utilized in Santa Barbara County. 215 people were housed or in the process of being leased up in the last 6 months. And that is because of two things. This is what we're hearing. One is that intensive supportive services are attached to those emergency housing vouchers. So Good Samaritan Shelter is the lead. They have a very comprehensive team that is working with the 250 individuals that are countywide now that are being placed, that have been placed or are going to be in place in new housing units. And two, there was a huge landlord incentive attached to that. So they started with $2,500, again, to initiate, engage in a lease with individuals experiencing homelessness. They upped it to $5,000. And so that the national average for utilizing those emergency housing vouchers was 15.9%, and ours was 100% in the middle of a housing crisis. So these are the things that we absolutely need more coverage of. We need to share more. And so at our next all-call meeting, I'm hoping to get the City Housing Authority to be able to communicate the strategies that were in place all of the time, the case managers that had to work so quickly to make sure that folks were doc ready, applying for those housing vouchers, that they were going through the vetting process, they were successful in that process, and finding a unit and facilitating that process, and then getting them settled in a unit. I mean, it was just a huge undertaking across so many organizations: New Beginnings, City Housing Authority, CityNet, Good Samaritan Shelter, so many. PATH, I mean, I could go on. But that, you're right, Father John, those are the stories that need to be highlighted and elevated across the board. Conrad, I see you listening in. I don't know if you're doing multiple things at once, like many of us are, but Conrad, anything to share? I debriefed in very, I think, sufficient detail about the site visit last week, but any insights to share from your perspective?
Sure. So after we did that site visit, and sorry for joining late,
No problem.
to work and do this at the same time. That was a really interesting site visit, and I just did the homeless count yesterday morning.
Yeah.
They didn't put me in the same area. They put me downtown. So Darcel and I were running around like the county building. Totally different demographic than the
Yes.
camp that you and I went into. I was really surprised. The camp people were way more sane. We're talking to JC or Patrick over there,
We're not going to use names, but yes, go ahead.
who's shall not be named.
Yeah.
Those are not their names. Yeah. Oops, whatever. Those guys were really transparent and clear and understood exactly where they were and what they needed to get by. And they're very logical to talk to. A lot of the people, that I was dealing with downtown were really not saying. You'd ask them, as part of the questionnaire, like, do you have any mental health issues? That's one of the questions we're supposed to ask them. They're like, no, not at all. And neither does my imaginary friend right here. And it's like anybody with, slightest bit of, I'm not training this, but you can clearly tell this person's not well. It was really surprising, up here on Upper State, that at least in that encampment, I wasn't seeing a lot of that from who we talked to. We had one that was, clearly not well, but just different demographic. I found that interesting.
No, and I appreciate that you've had both of those experiences within a week's time, and you're right. I mean, I think, again, if you don't frequent other neighborhoods in the city of Santa Barbara, it definitely, every neighborhood is feeling the impacts of homelessness, is absolutely supporting neighbors and individuals experiencing homelessness. But it does shift neighborhood by neighborhood in terms of the type of population. So, the waterfront tends to have a number of folks out of the area, that are traveling through. And again, those are the opportunities for reunification, relocation. And I say that this is a vetted process. And so there is some misperception that people are dropped here or dropped somewhere else. Again, I can't verify that. I'm sure there could be one or two circumstances of that happening. But any relocation or reunification that the City of Santa Barbara Police Department or case management and outreach teams facilitate is heavily vetted. So not only do we have to first identify and understand and engage with what the alternative is, whether it's a family, friend, job, housing opportunity, but then there's follow-up after that relocation or reunification has been facilitated. So again, I use these terminologies. If you have any questions as I bring things up, please let us know. And the point in time count data, we're going to give the county a month. It might not take that long. Everything, again, is online and computerized, but we know it takes time to look at all the data and make sure that the data is useful for folks as we, again, continue on with our strategic planning processes. We are set. So SB Act and the Act on Homelessness Collaborative service provider partners are set for a presentation before City Council in mid-April. We will let you know when that date is. We'll be sharing data at different times before that, but that will be our comprehensive report of accomplishments in the last year and a half. And so we would love for all of you to listen in on that presentation as well. Al.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up real quick before we get too far. As far as, with Conrad, first off, I want to thank you for coming out there with us. Someone in this line of work greatly appreciates when anyone from the community actually comes out there. Secondly, I'd like to hear the feedback, that you had from yesterday along with last week, to get the kind of wave. And I guess what you can see is that something, what that tells me a little bit, because even anyone in these type of projects that had those opportunities at the Rose Garden, they got a chance to stabilize. They got a chance to, have the meals, have the 4 walls, assistance with making sure they, follow through with their medical appointments after, case management scheduling them. So having built that foundation in time, you kind of get to see the type of conversations and interactions you have, right? Because some of the same people you might have ran into yesterday could definitely be the same people that now, if they have that opportunity, can restabilize. And if you talk to that same individual that you talked to yesterday in a couple months, you can probably have a different conversation with them. So that kind of gives you, and so I appreciate that, Conrad, just kind of see the spectrum of how we work and what these opportunities that we Barbara was talking about in the future can make a difference in. And so I let anyone know, especially on these calls, come out to these site visits. Come, I would definitely love to meet you guys if I'm able to make any of those, so you can see the true interactions of what happens, which is completely different from a phone call or a Zoom meeting. So thank you, Conrad, for coming out last week. Thank you for, doing your part yesterday. And it does make a difference, to the community, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Yeah, Al, just thank you for bringing me with you guys and, letting me see the front lines. It's, you don't understand this problem from a Zoom meeting or reading a book
Right.
or reading, Washington Post or anything else. You need to get out there on the front lines and talk to some people.
Yeah. Conrad, thank you so much. And the book was a great read though, too.
Well, you got to read the books as well. I mean, you can't not read the books. You also got to get out there.
And did you see Councilmember Friedman reference the book too in his interview with Nick Welsh on the Independent? So it's getting some traction.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Good. Hey, and this is how I would love to wrap up this call this morning is it is this level of exchange that we hear from you, your perspective, what your concerns and needs and questions are. We're learning from you, learning with you. And again, at every step of the way, that this level of coordination and collaboration that we're able to facilitate because of the city's investment and prioritization on homelessness is where these things are able to really gain a lot of traction and a lot of success. So thank you. I know it's an inconvenient time and can be for many at 10 o'clock on Thursdays, but this is why we, again, continue to commit to recording these conversations. Jeff at sbact.org, Barbara at sbact.org. We're always available to take your inquiries, again, concerns, and please utilize that encampment report link. I'm sure something happened with Chris Clark in an emergency meeting this morning, so I'll reach back to him to make sure that we can get that report next week. Any final questions, comments, concerns?
Ash Wednesday is next Wednesday.
Thank you, Father John. I appreciate you reminding us of the spiritual course of things. Appreciate that a lot. And I see another question. Oh, mental illness and drug addiction. So you're right. And the crime and physical attacks that some in the community have experienced. So, so a few things. So usually during these calls, we have Sergeant Ryan DeJean or Lieutenant Kappas joining us to answer from law enforcement. Again, the focus that has been in deploying law enforcement in the Upper State Street region. And so we will absolutely, and we regularly do have reports from law enforcement about citations and again, other efforts that they have focused on in that region. So we will provide the latest update at our next meeting. And questions about mental illness and drug addiction. So Al, you spoke to this a little bit too. So again, we'll get new data for this point in time count. And Conrad's right, it is self-reported data. But from what we know and what we've experienced, about a third of individuals experiencing homelessness have and are experiencing a mental health issue. About a third are experiencing a substance abuse disorder. And again, we know in general, those who've experienced incredible and significant trauma, which is the majority of individuals who are living on the street. So 68% have reported that trauma was what caused their about with homelessness. And again, that you continue to experience trauma as you're living on the street. So we know the average person that's dealing with and managing trauma can lead to kind of self-medication. So we know that there is alcohol use and substance abuse happening across individuals experiencing homelessness. So this is all targeted outreach. So we work with behavioral wellness, again, who's usually on this call. There must be a county or city meeting, Liz, that's happening that we've missed some of our providers. It's also been a big week. The point in time count started at 5:30 a.m. yesterday. So Jeff actually did not have his regional action plans this week, and I just wanted to keep consistent with our schedule. So we usually have behavioral wellness represented on this call. So when CityNet engages with an individual that they feel, again, is dealing with a mental health disorder, behavioral wellness then steps in to be able to support that individual. So all of that is happening, again, on the streets states with individuals and among and in coordination with multiple service providers to be addressing those unique needs. And again, when intensive supportive services, as they're attached to permanent supportive housing, mental health and addiction specialization is attached to those intensive supportive services as well. So thank you so much for bringing up these questions, Demir. This is exactly what we talk about every week on these calls. And any opportunity we have to provide some insight and education about how individual needs are being managed over time, we will continue to update that. So everything that you've asked is what we cover on this call, and we have different providers getting really specific insight as it relates to addressing those needs and issues. Liz? Liz, you have your hand up. I want to make sure I get to you before we sign off.
Sorry, I was
Okay.
speaking and I was muted. So I posted on the chat the link for reporting individuals in need. This is a different link than reporting encampments. This is specific to if you see an individual that you think is in need of CityNet or other street outreach services. CityNet gets these reported to them. We also share these reports with the outreach team that Barbara mentioned. So for possible outreach, and yeah, that is attended by Be Well, Behavioral Wellness, and other service providers. So they can kind of coordinate who's gonna look at that area for that individual. So there's some of that. And of course, if there's ever any physical attacks, police, it's always the person, you know, the number to call. And we should probably share our resources directory that's on our city website. I'll try to get it up and post it on the chat before we end the meeting. That is a list that is put together to how to report various different circumstances. So if you see a person screaming on the street, who to call for that. So I will mute myself and post that link right now.
Great. And that also has information, Demir, about if you see trash, again, that's all reported through, and then they triage based on the information provided to the appropriate department or nonprofit partner that can facilitate and address that issue. So we encourage everyone to use that link to report observations across all of these areas and needs, because that's one, how we collect data to know and understand the issues that we're facing in general citywide. And then also that if we have one portal where this information is being received, it's more strategically directed to the appropriate division. So
And here's the information right here, guys. So just let you know, from Liz and Chris Clark, it gets right over here. And I'm actually going over it as we speak, and I have a team out there putting into effect as we speak. So this process is working. You know, we are fine tuning it. So thank you, Liz. It's, you know, doing your part on your side, getting us the information, and thank the community for getting that information in. And then we take it from there. And so to streamlining it down, we want to let you know that things are being done.
Yeah, absolutely. And Demir, I'll send you that response directory individually, and also include you on our distribution list moving forward, so you're always up to date about what's
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all so much. Appreciate your time today, and stay warm and try to enjoy some of the weekend, I hope. And we will see you all next Thursday at 10 a.m. Thanks. Have a great day.
Great day.
Bye-bye.